Okay.
Welcome back, everybody, to the show. Listening to yourself talk in your ears is not the way to start the show. All right, everybody, we are back live tonight. That's right. The Squatchers Lounge podcast is back in the podcast saddle. Sorry we're a little late tonight. I started a little late at 8:15, but you know what? It's on archive. You can listen to it anytime you feel like it. Tonight, we've got live in the studio with us our guest, our resident quasi theorist and scientist himself, Mr. Dean Cooper. Welcome along with us, Dean. Hello.
Hello. Nice to be back here.
Yes, for sure. We are going to be doing Littlefeet and the little creatures of the woods rather than Bigfoot tonight. We'll talk a little bit of the woo, and we've got some quasi theories lined up that you can kind of give us a little bit of explanation to, and maybe we'll get to everything. Maybe we won't, but we'll absolutely see. But the Littlefoot of Huber Heights, that's right. Our friends over at Into the Fray did a 2-hour podcast with this. It's on their site. If you just search for Huber Heights or Littlefoot, it'll pop right up. And it talks about two people from Ohio who kept experiencing these little hairy creatures around their property. Not so much Bigfoot, but Littlefoot. And, you know, there are lots and lots of stories out there of little critters of the forest.
Jeff, I should interject that I'm watching this on StreamYard, and I can't see the side chat. So,
okay, no wonders, no worries. I can see it. I'm here.
Good.
Yeah, I got it covered. We're good.
I just wanted everybody who's used to me in the side chat knows I'm not there.
That's weird because usually I thought you could see it as a guest on the thing, but I don't know. And nothing works the way it's supposed to. But yeah, Littlefoot. You know, what do you know about Littlefoot there, Dean?
Well, this is where you should probably just play the video because I don't have it all memorized.
All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll start it out. Let's run the Littlefoot quasi, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Yeah. Okay. All righty then. Let's get that one here. It is. And now, Quasi Theories from a Quasi Scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
Littlefeet from Ivan T. Sanderson's Abominable Snowmen Legend Come to Life. Dear Mr. Sanderson, I listened to you on Long John Nable's program last Thursday and was very much surprised that you talked about such things as abominable snowmen in America. I am a housewife, but I majored in biology, attended our state university, and have an MA in plant zoology. I come from Mississippi, but we have resided here in Kentucky for 10 years now. I wonder if you have ever heard of the little red men of the Delta. Nobody thought anything much of them when I was raised, except that one had better be careful of shooting one because it might be murder, or so the sheriff might think if anything came of it. But I was surprised to find that the folks hereabout know it too. Though they took some years to talk to me about it, they are said to be about the size of a 10-year-old kid and able to climb like monkeys and to live back from the bayous. They talk a lot but keep out of gunshot range and mostly go into the water. They are people, and the muskrat trappers say they often wear scraps of discarded linens, old jeans, and such. Yours, etc., Mrs. V.K. If you haven't read Abominable Snowmen, Legend Come to Life, you are an ill-read squatcher. But be that as it may, these little guys that climb like monkeys don't seem to get much press these days. Native peoples knew and know a good deal about them. Like the bigger hairy men, almost all tribes in North America have stories about them. Some of the stories rather closely resemble those of the little people of Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, with supernatural under- and overtones. I'm just going to list a few of the names and descriptions the tribal people gave them. The Yakama know them as the Watistas, the ancient people. They are 2 feet high and wear rabbit skin robes. The Flathead Indians say that when they moved into northern Montana, there was a race of 3-foot-tall dwarves, dark-skinned and with a civilization. The Shoshone have the Ninimbe, who are 2 to 3 feet tall and wear goatskin clothes. Great Lakes tribes had hairy-faced dwarves of different names that had small canoes. The Miami, who did not live in Florida, but in parts of Illinois, Indiana, and southern Michigan, knew the Paisa. The Paisa are about 2 feet tall, with white skin and light brown hair, and wear shirts woven with long grasses, bark, and sometimes fur. The one thing most of the tribes say about their local Littlefeet is that they can be quite dangerous. Some use chipped stone-tipped poison arrows. Others try to lead you astray, to be drowned or led off a cliff. As the 19th century Scottish poet William Allingham warned, "Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men." You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Rabbit skin clothes wearing cannibal dwarves from Netherlands, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty wicked stuff. And I talk about, the wee people. I have family in Ireland and Scotland, and they all have stories of fairies and small people and leprechauns and creatures of the forest that it's always like that bump in the dark stuff. It's always, to keep the family close to the fire, to not wander off at night so you don't get eaten by a wolf. More so than the little feet of the forest. The chances of you getting eaten by the little feet of the forest is probably a lot less than getting eaten by a wolf. Yeah. But a wolf doesn't seem so scary to a teenage kid, but something that'll grab you and drag your mama off with you. Well, that kind of is that's a little different story.
Well, I could go on for hours about things like dogmen. And I know you couldn't stand the show, but Skinwalker Ranch is back on.
I've caught a couple episodes. Yeah, I've tried
some weird stuff.
They have right next door to them the Blind Frog Ranch.
Yeah,
and they did a series on that this year, and I actually liked that one a lot more than I enjoyed the Skinwalker whole, person, people transforming into things. I know weird stuff happens. I was talking with another podcast friend of the podcast last night, with the whole government revealing UFOs and declaring. I was like, but what did they really reveal? A crappy blobby IR footage of something moving in the sky and then falling into the ocean. I mean, that's really that's all they really released and said, yeah, this happens. We know this happens. We have video of this. We don't know what they are. I mean, they didn't show us close-up HD video of a UFO, of a flying saucer from another planet with lights and, some kind of, propulsion technology.
You had the Tic Tac ones too.
Right. I mean,
guys.
There's always been, Columbus talked about weird lights that followed the ships and would ascend into the sky afterwards. And I'm like, yeah, but those guys were drunk 3 sheets to the wind, like 99 out of 100 days. They also thought, that manatees were mermaids. So, I mean, how far does their eyewitness really go? But then you talk about stuff that, I know weird stuff's happened in the Sierras because I've been there.
Yeah.
Green lights over the horizon. When you get there, it's gone. Well, where the hell did that green light go?
Yeah, well, it's I've got on my YouTube channel, I've got a playlist of what was it, paranormal things, spooky things that happened to me. Yeah, the stuff's real. I've seen little guys. Not real clearly, but little guys. There's one I didn't even talk about. one time, I went to college at Knox College down in Galesburg, Illinois. And one time my wife and I went down there to visit with some friends who were still in college and some friends who lived outside of town. And we're walking through a Civil War cemetery. And it's fall, so there's leaves blowing all around, mainly oak leaves. And then we noticed there are some little guys kind of looking like the leaves, but running along with the leaves like a tarantula.
Huh.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they didn't scare us or anything, but we had to go because it's not that big a cemetery.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I'm not one for hanging out in cemeteries because weird crap happens in cemeteries at night. The human body has too much energy in it for when it to die, for that energy to just dissipate. It goes somewhere. It does something. And there's a whole lot of it. I mean,
I should do a quasi just about that stuff because there's another haunted cemetery just outside of Galesburg, and a friend of mine and I used to bicycle out there and sit at night, and it's like, yeah, it felt really, really weird. People had seen ghosts and stuff there.
yeah,
I didn't see anything, but it felt weird. Yeah, there's
it's kind of strange. I don't really believe in ghosts, but I believe in demons. It's strange that, I mean, I believe in residual energy. I totally believe that, that there are things that are seen that are a remembrance of the past, but I don't think those things can interact with you or you be able to interact with them.
Yeah,
Like a ghost, like a haunting, like, a poltergeist. I really don't buy the poltergeist thing. There's a different answer for that.
Well, one of the and I didn't know we were going to go off in this direction.
Well, why not? It's quasi night with the Deanster.
Directions, anyways. Yeah, I've had, and I haven't really talked about it much because once you're initiated into a particular system of yoga, generally you're not allowed to discuss your spiritual experiences. But I have
sounds a lot like Scientology. They don't want you to know about Zorth.
Yeah, but
not Zorth, whatever his name is, Xandar, or whatever that their weirdo friggin' alien is.
Yeah, but Xenu.
Xenu, that's right. That's right. Get your very own piece of Xenu after you pay enough money into the Scientologist.
Yeah, but there's one thing I can tell you about. Way back before we got married, I had to, when I left Knox College, I had to live in my mother's house for a while. Not really long because we got married just a few months later, got a new apartment, all that stuff. Well, at that time, I was also trying to do astral projection, making your spirit, your astral body, leave your body. And I actually did it. I was floating up near the ceiling, and all of a sudden, there was like a big thumping noise, and I fell back into my body. It felt like a whoosh, boom. So yeah, I've done some of that stuff.
It's kind of like when when Peter realized that he shouldn't be able to walk on water, and his fat ass sank to the bottom too.
Yeah,
he was walking on water because Jesus told him he could walk on water, and as long as he believed that he could walk on water, he was walking on water. But the moment he realized that, I can't walk on water,
yeah,
down he went.
Did you know that Pythagoras, Pythagorean theorem,
the mathematician of old.
Yeah, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. To get an area of a rectangular object, he founded a whole school of Pythagorean initiates. They had to learn the theories.
Cultists.
They were basically cultists, and they were told
because they were against the church. So I mean, anything that was against the church.
This is like around 600 BC in Greece.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Socrates was a follower of Pythagoras. Plato was a follower of him. And Plato's academy had a sign over it saying, no one who doesn't know any mathematics can't come in here.
I can add 2 plus 2. I mean,
I used to be pretty good at all that stuff back in high school and college, but I didn't use it for decades. So now it's like, damn, I got to look this stuff up.
my youngest son is working, getting his GED as soon as he turns 18 on his birthday. So we've been doing practice tests. And I was like, I'm taking them too, because I'm just curious. If I can't pass them, then there's a freaking problem with the GED. I mean, there's a lot of botards out there with the freaking with a GED. I mean, there just are. I'm not saying that and whatever. But I've been taking them and just acing them. I mean, it's just like it's really. When I was in high school, we had this thing called the state minimum requirements test, and you took that test every year from like 6th grade till you graduated high school. But in 9th grade, from 9th grade to 12th grade, the test never changed. It was the same test all 4 years. So if you did very well on it in 9th grade, they really didn't make you take it again until 2 years later and retest you for it. And my thought was, I mean, I got a 94% on it in 9th grade, the beginning of 9th grade.
Yeah.
I'm like, why didn't I just quit high school and go get my GED?
Yeah.
I obviously had enough knowledge to do that. Why we make these kids waste their time with 4 years of high school that's just socially damaging to most of them? I don't really understand. Well, but anyhow,
I like this tangent too. But 5th grade, I had a freshman high school level of reading. By the time I got into freshman year at high school, I was testing with basically a senior level of reading. And by the time I was in junior year, I was testing with a post-grad college.
Yeah, we sure wasted a whole lot of time on non-essential friggin' education. That is for sure. We could create more Pythagorean. I mean,
Pythagorean theorem. We do more than that, but I want to throw one last thing in. Pythagoras' disciples said he could walk on water.
Well, there you go. That's because he knew the mathematical equation to believe that he could walk on water.
Yeah, and he went around wearing white robes and a golden crown.
Because he was that important. Hey, let's get back to the topic here and finish up at least with Littlefoot, and then we'll move on to one of the other things here, because it'll lead us off on some other tangents, I'm sure. Well, the cryptozoology at fandom.com wiki on Littlefoot. It's known that a number of UFOlogical, God bless him, wordsmith. I am a wordsmith at heart, buddy. Reports on the file concern sightings of shaggy bipedal entities resembling North America's famous mystery man-beast, Bigfoot or Sasquatch, in association with alleged UFOs and landed extraterrestrial spacecraft. However, the seemingly invulnerable troll-like category of alien encountered by Gustavo Gonzalez and Jose Ponce while driving their truck from Caracas to Pater, Venezuela during the early morning of the 28th November 1954 could more aptly be referred to as a Littlefoot. Before reaching Pater, they encountered a huge glowing globe hovering about 6 feet above the ground, which was virtually blocking the entire road ahead. Consequently, the two men got out of their truck to investigate, and as they approached the globe, a furry bipedal being appeared and began to approach them. Standing no more than 3 foot high, it was covered with stiff, bristly hair and had large clawed hands and feet. Gonzalez seized hold.
Claws, but I'm covered in bristly hair.
Gonzalez seized hold of his Littlefoot in order to take it to the police, and was surprised to find that the creature was exceedingly light. He was even more surprised, however, to discover how powerful it was. For with a single push from one of its paws, it effortlessly propelled Gonzalez through the air, sending him sprawling onto the ground about 5 yards away. By now, Ponce was running back down the road towards the local police station. As he did so, he spied another 2 of these Littlefoots, gathering rocks and carrying them aboard the sphere. The first Littlefoot, however, angered by Gonzalez's action, began savagely clawing at him. But when Gonzalez tried to defend himself by stabbing this creature with his knife, the blade made no impression on its body. Suddenly, a 4th Littlefoot appeared, emerging from the spear, and stunned Gonzalez with a beam of light, enabling the others to go aboard and depart. When the police had established that neither Ponce nor Gonzalez were drunk, they gave them sedatives and also confirmed that Gonzalez bore a long red scratch on his side. Furthermore, several days later, a medical doctor came forward to announce that he had actually witnessed from a distance the attack upon Gonzalez by the Littlefoots, but had not intervened because he did not want to be the focus of publicity. However, can such an amazing diversity of alien forms as these, and many others also on record, be explained? The initial assumption is that any or all of them are indeed real. A big assumption in itself, of course. They clearly originate from totally different worlds, whether those worlds be planets or dimensions. However, as Yuji and other researchers have pointed out, these entities' morphological differences may owe more to psychology than anatomy. Could it be, for instance, that the image of an alien eyewitness sees is not a true form of the alien in question, but rather a false image placed in the eyewitness's mind by the alien? Ooh, there's a new theory for Zorth. Thereby concerning the latter's true self, an equity thought-provoking, obverse explanation that the eyewitness is not seeing the alien as it actually is, but rather as the eyewitness subconsciously chooses it to be. It's often said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but who knows? Perhaps the same is also true of alien morphology. And I've said this before, when it comes to things, and we talked about that. It's a matter of the human brain is designed to see certain shapes and identify certain things. And when it sees things that are similarly shaped to something it's familiar with, it tends to change it into that. Would you actually see a calamarian?
A squid?
Well, that's what that, a squid.
Sounds like Cthulhu.
A calamarian, they say that octopus are probably the third smartest creature on the planet after white mice and dolphins.
Yeah. No, I've seen stuff shared it on Facebook of they learned to like some people, and if it wasn't that their lifespan of any of the species, even the giant octopi of the Pacific Northwest, they only live 2 years. Even if the male has got this special breeding tentacle that doesn't
lives in semen sacs.
Well, what he does is he grabs them from his whatchamacallit, and then puts them into the female's whatchamacallit. But frequently the female sees what he's going to do, grabs the tentacle, bites the end off, and shoves it in herself.
Right, and stores multiple packs for multiple pregnancies.
Yeah, which
it's kind of crazy.
Well, they Lorraine Bobbitt the male, and instead of throwing it out the car window.
Well, they definitely John Wayne Bobbitt his ass, don't they? Yeah. Well,
Anyways, I wanted to hop back to weird ass stuff like the alien coming out of a saucer and then having to use rocks.
Right.
I think I did might have been a quasi theory about this, but it's like the things I have experienced, or Jane and I seeing the little spidery ass guys. Um, there's there's a portion of the physical world that the Theosophists used to call the etheric body that corresponds really well to plasma um, and to subatomic particles. Now, these little buggers we can see, the little spider guys, you'd call them nature spirits and or the little people and
Sprites.
or fairies. The little spider guys, they're just running around. I don't know, maybe they were taking care of the trees or something, or playing with the tree's astral body or something like that. But the higher ones, like the general little people ones, they can project to you whatever they're thinking you should look at them like. I think that's where you get dogmen from, where you get the one quasi I did about the we see the little people and they ain't so little.
Right.
Fairies dancing in a circle, but they and then there was this real scary feeling in the woods off to the next of it, and it followed my friends and I in the car till we got about 5 miles from the place. So yeah, this stuff's real, and they can't really hurt humans except psychologically.
Well,
So most of the stuff, there was one I did on the ghost in the well, I think I called it, that really nasty nature spirit, probably corresponding to like a gnome, was living in the well of the house Jane's parents lived in, and it was scaring everybody. And I went and looked for, I could feel where it was going, and got an intense feeling of scary power. But I ignored it because honestly, I've done all this meditating over the years, and I can sense that stuff and feel what it really is. So I chased it back down the well, and didn't bother us anymore.
Yeah, I don't get that power. I get the energy vampires. They just suck it out of me. The empath in me just feels everything. There
Well,
was we were I went and picked up my glasses today, and literally, like, I walked into a room full of 5 people and I could feel all of them.
oh yeah,
And and then the girl came from the back and I could actually feel her too, added to the presence of all of that ick. It's just like, God bless it, man. I just want to pick up my glasses. I'd like to have a little bit of energy left when I get home. You
yeah.
damn energy vampire and suckers. I mean,
I used to well, I can tell them there's people like that around. But what I do then is how would I put it? I release my energy flow,
yeah.
send it to them, and after all this meditating, I just get filled up again. They take whatever they want, and I just give it to them.
Yeah, well, with me being so sick, for so long, and not knowing, and I didn't really have a whole lot of energy to let people suck out of me, but these days I got to admit, as I'm healthier and as I'm eating better and I'm exercising more, and I do, God, man, I exercise 2-3 hours almost every single day. I walk for an hour to an hour and a half. I work in my garden for an hour to an hour and a half every day. I mean, I really, I want to survive this. That's for sure. But yeah,
This far, you saw me walking earlier in a very gimpy style, but I can walk. If I go outside, go to the store, I use a heavy-duty hiking staff, and because of the way I look,
you're a wizard.
Yeah, in fact, a couple of what do they call them? These I forget what they call them. That they wear gray fedoras, got a little mustache and goatees, and anyway, I was walking along back to my car from a Walmart, and the two guys go back past me, and they say, "Hey, there's Fat Gandalf." But it was a fair call because I'm looking like this, and I had a gray hoodie and gray sweatpants on. Yeah, I
And the
look like
hoodie's got the
Fat
point on
Gandalf.
it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
well,
I don't do that, but at Christmas I sometimes wear a Santa hat. Yeah.
let's take a moment and give shout outs to everybody that's hanging out with us live tonight here. Let's say hi to Lance Windsor was in there earlier. I don't know if he made it back for showtime or not, but hello, Lance. And Shane Barber's with us. I hope you're doing well, sir. And there's Miss Natalie Smith. You know, sometimes Wheezy's watching with us. I don't know if Wheezy's watching with us tonight or not. You got Ari and Mary Duncan. You know, we're going to go see them next month up in Gold Beach, Oregon for a trip. I haven't been out of California since the COVID started, so it'll be kind of nice to actually take a long road trip. There's that asshole Jeffrey Kelly. I don't know why that guy comes to this freaking show. I mean, I've told him time and time again. There's Collier Wilmus. Hey, buddy. I'm glad you're showing up and saying hi.
I call him what? Coal boy, because
Coal boy.
That's what Collier means, is a guy who handles coal.
Yeah, he handles coal all right. Lumps of something. Hey, there's Bella Allegri. Hello, Bella. Hope we're praying for you, sweetheart. The chemo sucks. We know it. I just hope you're feeling strong enough and to get through it. There, my friends, is the Reverend Rod Dupree. That's right. Hello there, Rodney. Glad you are with us, sir. There's the Don Rife, the Viking from the north. And Frank Smith all the way from the UK, man. That dude it's like 3 a.m. over there, man. I mean, it's like ridiculously late. It's
6 hours from now, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's some kind of crazy time over
it's
there.
Already tomorrow. Sure.
Yeah.
You should give us the stock market reports from the future. Then.
That's right. I could be rich if I could get him to participate. Can't Squanch.
They don't answer.
Can't Squanch is in the house. There's the Mr. Fang. It's like his button got stuck when he was making his username. Yeah. Hey, buddy, glad you're with us tonight. And David Lee, hey man, glad you're in the house tonight. If I didn't say Can Squanch earlier, I meant to, so I've said it now. Hey, Can Squanch. There's a Matthew Rudy. I'm not really familiar with that name. I think that's a new one I haven't seen before. Hello there, Matthew. At least it's not Matthew Johnson. It's kind of speaking of that for just a moment, just to talk about a topic for just a moment. That's the one thing that I always said about like Zorth and these tree creatures or these beings. What makes you think those are Sasquatch? Why can't they be something else? Yeah. They look sort of like a Sasquatch that we have here, but yeah, okay, interdimensional beings from somewhere else coming through a portal is far-fetched, but not impossible. But why does that mean that's the answer to the Sasquatch enigma? Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, that stuff there, these entities, if you want to call them, that I've run into occasionally. They can get you to see whatever they want you to see. They can make it look like there's a portal, all that sort of stuff.
Gone trapping. He's in the house with us tonight, too.
Oh, boy.
The Reverend Timothy McCune. Hello, Tim. Glad you are with us tonight, sir. Frank G. There's another fellow. I'm pretty sure it's way, way late wherever he is. Let's see here. Sorry, I lost my sense of humor there for a moment. Getting down to the bottom. If you hadn't said hi to me, I can't say hi to you because that's where everybody is at. If I missed you, I'm sorry. There's the Lance Windsor. He was spying on us. Okay. All right. Wheezy done gone to bed. Well, it does happen. It does happen. That's for sure. All right. So, yeah, the other thing, Littlefoot.
Let me interrupt for just a second.
Yeah.
I say hi to all those people. I've been chatting with most of them for much of the time the show's been on. I have to say, I love you all, and if I can send healing powers, it's going to all of you.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about this show that is a collection of people who need each other,
Yeah,
and
we're a bunch of gimps.
you know, and we are, but we're all here to support each other, and
Yeah.
you know, that's the beauty of it. Is, I mean, we really for all these years we really have been like a big gimpy family, and
Yeah.
but we all get along. It's not a
And
toxic environment.
not the pulp fiction kind of gimp.
Right. But you know, it's not a toxic environment, and that's kind of the fun of it, is the fact that, you know, people can come here and we don't let the trolls take over. We don't let all that stupidity go on, because that just ruins the show, is what that does. It makes people feel uncomfortable. People don't come back. Yeah, we curse a little bit sometimes. It happens. This show's for PG-13. I don't want to do things for children. That's not what my gig is about. We're talking about monsters. We're talking about things that get eaten. We talk about things that get killed. You know, we talk about monsters, and that's really not for young kids that don't have a parent nearby to explain that maybe it's real, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
You know, so, but you know, we love everybody. We're so happy that you're out there. I mean, Dean, you're like my, you know, you're like my adopted grandpa. You know, I think about you every day. I really do. You know, and we're all been concerned for each other, and we're gonna get better.
I got to throw in another naughty thing. If you can see, I'm getting pretty bald up here. It's like well, with the fairies and everything, it's like a night on Bald Mountain. And you people in the chat room, it's not spelled BALLED. Quit thinking about my balls.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Rev, I'm getting right there with you, my man.
Yeah.
And the long hair has thinned out so much that I'm starting to look like Gallagher. So I'm actually the long hair is going to be gone as soon as I can find an actual barber that can cut a real man's hairstyle for me, you know, and help me figure out what to do with it. You know, once we cut the length off of it, then I'll get it done. But I ain't going to a salon to look like Al Bundy.
You can't do one of those like this.
Mohawks. No, I can't do it because I'm missing. That's where I'm missing it. I could do a Cupid doll where there's just like a spot in the front that just like curls down in front of my head like a Cupid doll. But
I can braid my hair with my beard.
Yeah, well, that's painful, especially when you roll over at night.
I don't leave it that way. In fact, my nephew's wife, who lives just down the street from me with my nephew, about 2-3 summers ago, we were doing a fire pit thing at their house, and she insisted on letting her braid it on my fifth spinal fusion. I end up having to cut the hair back, and it's just growing back, but there's not a lot left. Beard's almost the same length it was, and yeah, I can do 2 of them or 3 of them or whatever. I usually just go with 1.
Yeah, I'm starting to let my beard come back. You know, I've got the undergrowth has started to make it all nice and full, but it'll be 2 years or so.
It's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, and I tell people, if you're gonna grow a beard, you have to start that first. Like, yeah, you need to keep your chin shaved down and let the under stuff actually get a head start of it, and then let the stuff grow in above it. So that it's
now I have to bring us back to the topic.
Because now we're talking about really stupid shit here.
Yeah, did you have a couple of more that you
I do. I was gonna bring up the next one here. Let's listen to the solar quasi real quick.
Yeah.
As it crashes. There we go. And now, Quasi Theories from a Quasi Scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
Solar flares are electrifying. Solar flares make for pretty northern lights and southern lights. The bigger the flare, the bigger the lights. The flare has to be aimed and timed just right, though, to hit the Earth. A British amateur astronomer, Richard Carrington, was the first one to observe a solar flare back on September 1st, 1859. Actually, another British astronomer, one Richard Hodgson, saw it at the same time, but somehow Carrington got first dibs on it. The Carrington event was named after him. What was the Carrington event, you might well ask? Well, that flare came at us with a major rider attached to it, a huge coronal mass ejection that hit us 17.6 hours later. Coronal mass ejections are mainly composed of electrons and protons. Since those electrons and protons have, respectively, negative and positive charges, they wreak havoc on our magnetic field, making it surge stronger and weaker, back and forth across the planet. The Earth's magnetic field twerks, as it were, the twerking continuing for as long as it takes for the mass of particles to go by. Now, we all remember our basic high school physics, don't we? What happens when you wiggle a magnetic field around an electrical conductor? Well, don't we? Do I hear crickets chirping? Telegraph operators around the world back in 1859 had a direct experience of what happens when a magnetic field twerks around a copper telegraph network. Electricity is generated. Sparks were reported flying off the key onto the operator's hand, some getting burns from the shock. Sparks flew off insulators on the telegraph poles. Operators disconnected the batteries that powered the lines, but were still able to key in messages using the induced current. Some wires melted. There's plenty of evidence that such things have hit the Earth in the past relatively frequently, geologically speaking. Here's a hypothetical quasi-question. What effect would a Carrington-scale coronal mass ejection have today? The answer is not at all hypothetical or quasi. It would blow out most of our satellites, electricity grid, cell phone network, radios, TVs, cell phones, computers. Anything with an electrical conductor in it could be toasted. Even your toaster. Need we worry? Surely, knowing that such things are likely to happen, our engineers, our governing bodies, our corporate masters have more than adequately prepared things to get us up and running toot sweet. You know, an adequate supply of backup electricity transformers and such emergency plans and similar reasonable precautions, like putting our electrical grid underground and shielded. Perhaps, in a happier alternate reality, our leaders have done so, but not in this timeline. When the next big coronal mass ejection hits us, it will be, as my college buddy Weird Ward would say, toot toot kablooey. You may read the text of this on my blog at bhaidin.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Bigfoot call or fat girl fart? You make the call. Yeah, the mass coronal solar ejections, they happen all the time, all the time, but they're not pointed at us.
Yeah, right now we're entering into a sunspot cycle. Sun's more active. The Earth's magnetic field is at its weakest in hundreds of years, and the North and South Pole are wandering about.
Yeah.
If a Carrington event hits us now, or any part of the planet, it's definitely toot toot kablooey. And
Well,
it gets even worse. About every 12,000 years, and I don't mean to scare everybody, but this is a fact. About every 12,000 years, the sun gets a bunch of cosmic dust around it. The sun darkens, virtually disappears, and then it does what they're calling a micronova, blasts all that dust out through the planetary system. That's what caused the mass deaths, the huge glacier melting up in the Northwest territories, And the blast from it set forests on fire, all sorts of stuff. And we're about
Scorched
40
earth.
years away from the next one.
Yeah, scorched earth. I mean, but we're already like 6,000 years overdue for Yellowstone to explode too. So I mean, that's just a ticking time bomb. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of when. And Yellowstone is like only one of like 19 super volcanoes that cover the Americas, North and South. And if any of them go, it's the end of the Americas. It doesn't matter which one goes. Any of those 19 super volcanoes goes, everybody dies. It's just what happens. There's no going underground. There's no, even if you went underground, it wouldn't matter. You're still going to get cooked. I mean, it's just, there's no defending that. So you can't get scared of it. You just have to live your life and hope that it doesn't happen until after your energy passes on.
Yeah. Let's see. There's now scientific evidence that the sun's magnetic field interlocks with the Earth's magnetic field. And when there's like a small coronal mass ejection, earthquakes start here because magnetically connected all the way through.
And the whole idea of gravity, the explanation of gravity is a magnetic attraction. So, when you look at the universe and the sun and how gravity affects how those things, it's hard to envision for a lot of people to realize that the sun is moving like 56,000 miles an hour through the universe, and we are being pulled behind it in a spiral orbit. Yes, we're orbiting around the sun, but we are also flying through the universe at the same time.
Our orbit goes like this around the sun.
Right. And we change positions, we get closer to it, we get further away from it. Those magnetic, those magnetic forces change. There's holes in the Earth's magnetic field right now that they know about. I mean, the Aurora Borealis is a direct reflection of the Earth's magnetic interaction with other magnetic interactions in the universe. And that the whole idea of gravity being able to enact friggin' hundreds of thousands, if not millions of miles away on an object, because the sun is pulling all the Kuiper belt along with it too.
Hey, Jeff, we need to cut this short here. My wife needs some help.
Okie dokie, sir. Well, with that, we will say thank you, everybody, for joining us at the Squatchers Lounge podcast this week. It has been a very interesting discussion, and we'll have you back on soon for another Quasi night. How does that sound?
Yeah, I'd actually be up for doing maybe one a month.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely start putting something together then, because I really enjoy these nights with you. But go take care of the wife, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye now.
Bye-bye, guys. All right, and with us, we'll go ahead and round this out with a Bigfoot campfire story from Tennessee. You guys hear that? I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that's a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. Well, Dave Carter and his family had lived on his family's property for as long as they had been married. The land had been his father's and his father's father before him, as far back as anyone around town had remembered. It had been some of the highest ridges in the hollow and some of the prime growing lots on nearly all sides of the line. Dave lived there for many years with his wife Sue and young daughter Jenny. The house was a plain single-level dwelling built sometime after the Great War, faded white paint chipping off everywhere, and new shingles laid over the old to keep the wind and the rain out, and a wraparound porch with a screened-in back for muggy summer nights. Nearly everything Dave owned was either secondhand or something his father had left behind, but it all worked in its own weird way, and the family existed this way day in and day out. The area was full of wildlife, from the smallest wood rats to the biggest black bears and everything in between. On the west side of the property, there was a livestock pond and a barn and a garage up front for the equipment. The fall had set in early this year, and the days grew more windy and cold as the sun set in. It was a Tuesday evening when Dave had been returning to town when his life became a bit more interesting. Well, Sue had sent me into town to pick up some groceries for a late supper. She hadn't realized the corn had gone bad and wanted a few other things along with it. I had passed my friend Eric Swanson on the way into town, and he was heading out. We waved at each other as we passed. Well, upon my return from town, to my surprise, just 100 yards down from my driveway was Eric's car, all smashed in the front and leaking fluids. Well, I drove up the road a bit to try and find him, and I hadn't had any luck, so I turned up my driveway to the house, and I was surprised to find him in my kitchen with my wife, a bit shaken, having some coffee. I asked Eric what had happened to the car, and all he would say was some sort of animal. He wasn't quite sure. It was just that it ran out in front of the car, took the hit, and then ran back into the woods, screaming in pain as it ran away. Ran away, I asked. Yes, he said, take it for what you want, but it looked like a little hairy person, all covered in gray brown hair, and that was all he could express in detail, other than sitting there sipping the coffee, mumbling. It was a little hairy person, sure of it, but not a person. It was an animal, as if trying to work out what had happened in his own head. We phoned a tow truck and to come and collect his car, as there was no way it was drivable with the fender crushed in as it was. I let Eric finish 2 more cups of coffee and tried once again to get the story, but he just said the same thing. It looked like a hair-covered person, but it was an animal. And just then, Eric's wife pulled up into the drive. Eric, looking a bit panicked, begged that we just tell her it was a deer and leave it at that, as he didn't want to sound crazy to his wife, to which we agreed, and after a cup of coffee with Eric and his wife, they left without any further talk of the accident. Once Eric had left, Sue turned to me and asked, just what do you think he meant? It was a little hairy man, but it wasn't. Well, of course, I had no idea, but I was going to go find out. So I grabbed my shotgun and I set outside for a walk about the property. I walked down the driveway back out to the road, then turned left to get back to where Eric had left his car. As I turned the corner, I noticed that the tow truck was there and had just backed up to hook it up. As I approached the car, I began to notice a foul animal smell. It was like wet dog, only worse. And then I could see the blood. Pete, the tow truck driver, commented on the damage. He said, boy, that must have been some big dog. It's bent clear up in the hood. Look at that hair. That's dog hair, isn't it? Well, I reached up into the jagged, wrinkled car fender and hood and pulled a tuft of hair from it. It was the strangest hair I had ever laid eyes on. Longer than a dog's, yet shorter than a horse's mane. There was a very strange coarseness to it. But when I smelled it, that was when I learned where the smell had actually come from. I looked all down the side of the car, and there were drips of blood and feces where the animal had bounced off the fender. Well, I trucked the blood back to the grass and noticed a trail of it heading back off into the woods. So I began to follow the trail. After all, if there was a wounded animal out there, it shouldn't be left to suffer. The trail was really easy to follow at first, as the blood was pretty wet nearly every few feet, but then it began to get thinner and less often, until I lost the trail completely. Did the animal bleed out? Well, if it did, it should be laying around here somewhere. So I began to walk in spirals looking for a body. I searched and searched for quite some time until the sun was nearly gone from the horizon, and it was just too late to look further. I would have to come back in the morning with some help, so I headed back to the house for some dinner and to update the wife. As I got near the house, Jenny, our daughter, was being fussy, and it was all I could do not to laugh. I opened the front door, and Sue exclaimed out, "Where have you been? We've been surrounded by something yelling from the woods." Well, I hadn't heard anything on my walk up from the front acreage, but sure enough, just then, what sounded like a wailing cry came from behind the house. With this being the high hills of Tennessee, there bobbed. Well, sorry about that, folks. I'll find the good one and try it again next week. With that, love you. May the Squatch be with you.